meeting. You have to be patient with me.
Gray.
Oh,
Harry, you knocked
Wow.
us all off.
Oh,
Okay?
His agenda.
Yeah, that's the agenda. And I'll keep it on for a little bit. And then I'll switch to a PowerPoint presentation. It's what I usually do at the annual meeting. So we're basically call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. Until last night, we didn't have a quorum. A quorum, I would need 32 proxies for a quorum. When I rewrote the condo documents, I changed the requirements for a quorum from 50% to 40%. And you can't imagine how many people wrote to me to correct it.
what's that?
That's a telephone.
Somebody's phone.
And fortunately, I changed it. Anyway, we have 42 proxies, so we have a quorum. We need a quorum. I needed you to send me proxies because there's no way to register for this. The next item on the agenda is the Board of Directors election. We have 7 candidates, and I'll show them to you in a few minutes. And as a result, there's no election, and they're all voted in by acclamation. And at this point, I'll switch away from the agenda and I'll start my presentation. You have to be patient. It took me a while to figure out how to do this. Let me tell you, I spent all week.
Condominium annual, hey, very nice.
It looks nice, eh?
Yeah. Nice, Harry.
Okay.
You always do a good job, Harry.
Okay, so here it is. I made it large so that everybody could read it, including myself.
Very nice. I'm gonna take a picture of that.
Oh, there's better pictures, Nady.
All right.
Okay.
Blocks came back.
What?
All the blocks came back.
I just taken them out. Okay. And state law says that we have to notify all residents with a first notice at least 60 days before the meeting. And let me get my pointer here. There's a way to get a pointer here. Here. So I sent it out 65 days. So I met that requirement. And then there's a second notice that has to come out 14 days before. And that's when I sent out the agenda. So I complied with all the regulations.
Oh,
Now
that's a beautiful lady.
yes, and unfortunately, I had to ask her to resign.
He didn't want me anymore.
No, I did, Rhoda. But you know, it's under difficult times during this pandemic. We only had 2 full-time board members
Wow.
in Florida. So I asked Rhoda to resign. Rhoda did a fantastic job for us. She's been a board member since 2013. That's over 7 years. She was responsible for most of the parties during that period of time. But regretfully, I asked her to resign so that
No problem.
we could replace her with somebody who is not nearly as beautiful as Rhoda.
Oh, wow.
Hello, Robert.
That's Robert, okay?
All right. You're what's the word I want? You're okay now, Harry, in my
Okay.
books.
Phew, I was worried. You live across the street from me, and I was afraid to go out for a walk.
I don't blame you.
I see your TV on every night, Harry.
Yeah. So Robert's a full-time board member, and he's actually been a great help for the past 6 or 7 months. The other 2 full-time board members is Lorraine and Carmen, and they've also been extremely helpful.
Me fun.
The rest of us are snowbirds. There's Francois, Paul, Tom, and myself, and we're in house arrest here in Canada. Okay, I switch now to the reserves. I've always felt the reserves were an extremely important part of our administration. And these aren't exact figures because I haven't included the interest payments. But roughly in 2020, we had almost $450,000 in reserve. With the current budget, it's going to go up to 511,000.
Nice.
We're actually only collecting.
No, everything is an advocate money.
Yeah, if you keep speaking, it interrupts. So if you want to speak amongst yourself, you have to mute yourself. So
511.
this amount,
Just copy.
okay, so
They can rebuild the building.
yeah, but we also hear you talking. And in fact,
That work?
Tom,
Yeah, I'm on it.
yeah, mute them all, mute all, okay?
Okay,
Put their heads.
I will mute them all.
Yes,
Okay.
okay.
You muted Harry too.
Yeah, I muted Harry too. Okay. Okay.
He has to mute himself.
I have to unmute.
I'll mute everybody.
Let's call to unmute. I can't hear him.
Right, because you muted him.
Okay, but yeah. Let's go.
Unmute. Say something, Harry.
Okay,
Don't-
okay.
Good
I'm
boy.
sorry. Tom, we've been all unmuted.
I know, but I have to do it one by one then.
No,
No, it's all unmuted.
No, but if I mute all, it mutes you too.
No, but
Yeah.
Harry, you have to mute it and mute yourself.
Hey, Tom, don't unmute us. We'll be quiet.
Yeah, just leave it like that.
That's another option.
I unmuted.
okay. This list,
Muted.
What?
No.
yeah,
Oh, it's not
somebody is
Yeah.
speaking.
mute. It said mute and unmute, so I unmuted and everything came.
Normie, don't talk.
Sei still.
Disk.
Mute them all manually.
You unmuted it, we can't hear anything.
Okay, can I continue?
Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, I know you do, but I also hear everybody else who mumbles there in the background. Okay, this is the diagram describes the reserve fund since 2007. The yellow bars are what was before I became president. I became president 2010, and as you can see, we've gradually increased our reserve fund over the years. The orange part of the bar is when we had to remove or withdraw some money from the reserve. And these bars here that I'm pointing to is when we had to withdraw money to upgrade the elevator and install a new fire panel. That cost us over $100,000 that came out during that time. And then we replaced that amount over the years. This is when we painted the building. And so you can see we've gradually increased our reserve. And this is what we project will be the reserve, slightly over $500,000 at the end of 2021. Now, you're gonna ask, why do we need so much?
Session and the final moment of the process is when that
Okay, I'm gonna,
encumbers to make it all official. What I watch for now, as we see this plan, are Republicans on Capitol Hill who have yet to call Joe Biden president-elect.
Harry, I'm muting everybody except you.
Okay,
It's just not gonna work.
Electoral votes not based on a projection, but based on this actual voting of these electors in state after state after state.
Harry?
yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. You may ask, why do we need so much money in the reserve? Well, take the roof has to be replaced every 20 or 25 years. And
Representatives, there's a Capitol building that you see behind me, and this is a process that we are told will take about an hour, 38.
and it's, as you can see, each year we add money to the roof account. Last year we had 175,000. This year's gone up to 204,000. I suspect we're going to need close to $300,000 when we replace the roof. If a hurricane comes, and as it did in 2005, we had to replace the roof because the hurricane blew the roof off. Then there's painting, occurs every 7 to 8 years. We recently painted it, so last year we had $10,000 in the fund, and now it's gone up. At the end of this coming year, it'll be over 16,000 dollars. What we actually do is calculate the estimated cost and the lifetime to reach that cost, and that gets incremented every year, and sometimes it goes up because the cost of whatever we're doing goes up. Laundry machines, most of our laundry machines were replaced in the past 10 years, but nevertheless, they'll eventually start to be replaced again. So we're slowly accumulating funds for the laundry machines. Florida law states that we can only spend money on an item that's in a special account, or in other words, we can't take laundry machine money, and use it to replace the roof without a special general meeting and a vote of all the members. Now, the elevator, we have $23,000 this year. It's going up to 29, and I suspect we probably will stop accumulating money in the elevator because we may not need it for 10 years, or we may need it next year. We don't know. So we have a way to get around this problem. Catwalks, we have to reseal the catwalk every 5 years, and that's probably should be done in this coming year. And we have we will have $7,000 at the end of the year for that purpose. And that should cover the cost. Now I have two accounts down here. One's called capital improvement. And I learned this trick from the Florida Ombudsman. And I've accumulated $100,000 in each account to date. And the other account is capital improvement. Now we can use funds from these two accounts for anything, either to make improvements or upgrade. In the coming year, we're going to increase this by 20,000, so it'll become 120. Our plan was to do the same with this account, so we were going to put $20,000.
Harry, do you hear me? Harry?
Yes?
You hear me?
I'm not supposed to hear you.
Keep on muting you and you keep on unmuting it.
Because you disturb everybody when you speak. You'll have a chance to talk once I get through this, okay? But we decided to take the money that was in paving. Here's the paving account. It had $25,000. We used $21,000 this year. So we're left with 4,000, but we didn't use that money to pave the parking lot. Instead, we took the money out of this account and actually we made it appear as if we used it to pave the account so we could get it out of there. But in effect, we used money from the operating account to cover that cost, and we put the $20,000 into this fund. So we basically kept the money within the reserves and used the money from the operating account to cover the cost of paving. There's also the problem of a hurricane deductible. We have an insurance policy that covers everything, including damages during a hurricane, but there's either a 2% or 3% deductible. And this is the percentage of the total appraisal cost of the building. And the building has to be reappraised every 3 years by Florida law. So the 2017 appraisal was 7.4 million. We recently got it reappraised. It's now 7.7 million. Once we reappraise it, the premium goes up because it's a more expensive building. And if we were at 3% deductible, that would mean that if we had a hurricane and we sustained damage, we would have to cover the first $231,000 out of the reserves, not out of the insurance policy. We can take an insurance policy for 2%, which would mean that our deductible would be $154,000. But the policy costs more at 2%. And you'll notice, I'll point out shortly that that's what we end up doing. We take the 2% so that in case we have a hurricane and we sustain damage, our deductible will only be $154,000. And that's the other reason we need a good deductible. In 2005, when we were struck with Hurricane Wilma blew the roof off the building. The building didn't have, and at that time it was a 3% deductible. The building did not have the reserve to cover the deductible. So each owner was assessed until the president, and this was Andy at that time, could collect the assessment from the entire building. We couldn't repair the roof. So we ended up at the end of the line to have our roof repaired. The roof didn't get repaired until February. The hurricane occurred in, I think, October. So we had a leaky roof for many months. So that's another reason why you really want to have a decent reserve and why you want to get good coverage insurance-wise. Now, each one of us should have a policy for our individual units, and the individual condo unit insurance has what's called a loss assessment coverage. I think I know my policy now, this is part of the coverage. In the past, you had to pay $6 to get this loss assessment coverage. And what that means is if we have a hurricane and we assess everybody, every unit owner, $2,000, that comes out of their unit insurance policy. Okay. So basically, we have 80 units we would collect in the event of a hurricane claim. We could collect $160,000 from the units. Now, it takes a long time to get all those done. And if you have a deductible in your insurance policy, that you don't get the $2,000 the unit owner has to pay the deductible on his policy so that he can transfer $2,000 to the building. Insurance premium. There was an interesting story when before we took over the current group of members who are board members took over. The previous board told us that they got a reduction on the insurance premium, and they switched to Emerson Port, who was then the insurance broker or the insurance agent. And they did this by getting a new evaluation on the building. So in 2010, when Bernie Atlas and I met with that insurance agent, he gave us a loose leaf binder. And as you'll see soon, we don't have a single insurance policy. We have 5 or 6 different policies. And in the loose leaf binder, there was a tab called appraisal, and that was empty. And we had no idea why it was empty. We were new in this business. The broker told us, don't worry about it. And then we met the next year, and again, this year, again, the loose leaf binder had an empty tab for the appraisal. And again, he says, don't worry about it, because at the end of the year, we're going to have to get a new appraisal because the state requires reappraisal every 3 years. Well, Bernie and I were a bit uneasy about this absent appraisal. So we went ahead and got one anyway. We didn't wait for the next year. And of course, the appraisal was incorrect. And we couldn't find an appraisal on the records that we got from the previous administration. And I sent a new appraisal to Emerson Port. And of course, our premium went up. And that increase in premium was the difference in the appraisal. And he sends me back an email and he says, it's a good thing you got a new appraisal, because with the old appraisal, if you had a claim, you'd be in deep, deep trouble. So since then, we've always gotten an appraisal, and the Emerson Port was in deep trouble because we got rid of him. And over the years, our insurance premium went up, and it was over $53,000 in 2015. And then a new insurance company came on the scene, and there was a price war. And you see, this is what happened to our insurance premium. And the premiums over the years has slowly been climbing back to what it is today. And we expected that to happen because price wars don't go on forever. And so each year we budgeted at this amount, not knowing when it would come back. The problem with the budget is we have to do the budget in October and November. We don't get the premiums until usually mid-December. I just got our new ones a week or two ago. So as a result, we had a lot of extra money in our budget during these years, and I'll show it to you in a few minutes. This year we've had you'll see soon, a 20% increase in our premium. I just spoke to our broker, and she's going to look into seeing why it's gone up that high. The major reason that's gone up, I think, is that with climate warming, there's been a lot of tornadoes, hurricanes, and although it hasn't hit us, the insurance companies have been hit with much higher claims. It's in the order of billions of dollars that they've paid out. So I suspect this is real, but I've compared our premiums to another building premiums, and ours seems to be a bit higher than theirs. And I spoke to Paula today, and she's trying to explain the difference between the two buildings. This is just to show you what the situation is in terms of insurance policy. As you see, these are all different policies. The two major ones are for the property and liability. And you can see the increase between last year and this year is almost $7,000 for property and $1,500 on liability. She's looking into why this has occurred. The other policies, there's one for things that are not quite covered with the property insurance, so we've taken that out. And there's, in case there's crime involved in running the building, we have a policy for that. There's the directors and officers are covered by a liability policy, and then there's a workman's compensation policy. This property policies I pointed out, we basically take full coverage. We take the 2% deductible. We also take an additional coverage for what's called law and ordinance. If we didn't take that and the roof blew off, the insurance company would compensate us to replace the roof exactly as it is. But you know, Deerfield Beach comes and says, it's not up to code. To bring it up to code, you're going to have to do X, Y, and Z, which is going to cost you an extra $200,000. Anyway, taking the law and ordinance gives us an extra $375,000 in coverage to cover any requirements for increased compliance to code. This graph represents the surplus in our operating account over the years. The yellow ones is again refers to what it was like before we got involved with the board, and we were doing pretty well until there was this problem with the insurance, and where we didn't know what the insurance premium was going to be, and we ended up having our operating account surplus increase. And you see now for the past 3 years, this last year and this is the year before, and that's what I'm projecting. It's running about 100,000. One of the advantages of having this larger operating account is that on January 1st, we have to pay the insurance premium. So this year, we're going to have to write a check for $53,000 at the beginning on January 1st. And because we have that amount, we can cover that. In the past, we would either have to finance it or take it out of the reserve and lose the interest of that money. So, and it's also having a extra amount in the operating account allows us to cover the unexpected. Like a couple of years ago, we had to replace the electrical panels, and I think we spent about $20,000 or $30,000 on doing that. Now, although it looks like we have an awful lot of money in our budget, the budget last year was $171,000, and I basically made it identical this coming year. But this is how it gets divided. The East Coast, this management company, takes about a little over $35,000 a year. It's gone up by 2% this year, which was part of the contract. Insurance, as you can see, last year was $45,000, and this year is $53,000. And the reserve, last year we put $42,000 into reserve. This year we're putting in $40,000. So we're actually only left this year with $41,000 in real operating funds, and this covers electricity, landscaping, and all the various repairs that occurred during the year. So last year we had to replace a palm tree, which cost us well over $10,000. So we don't really have that much money that to play with or to deal with things. We actually paved, because we had extra money in our operating account. We used the operating account to pave the parking lot. We're going to have to spend another $5,000 on the parking lot to seal the paving. If we seal it, it will wear much better. We're almost finished. This is to point out that the fees for both 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom is virtually identical between the 2 years. It's actually been this exact same amount in 2019. So for a 3-year period, the fees has not changed. And I did this to make it simple in terms of, okay, once a month I send out a financial statement. At the head of the financial statement is a page like this. It's a spreadsheet that I create that. It doesn't come from East Coast. East Coast just gives us a cash flow statement, and the cash flow statement is extremely difficult with their cash flow statement, virtually impossible to check if the items, if the income, expenses, and bank balance balance out. If you notice that this goes on for 2 or 3 pages, and I always can determine that the bank balance is consistent with the income and expenses. But the reason I show you this is because I've recently added at the end of that statement the total assets. And this is what it was like at the end of October. Our operating account had $131,000 in it. That still includes the $21,000 that have to be paid to the reserve. We have 2 reserve accounts, and we have to have these accounts because the FDIC insurance only covers $250,000. So we have to spread it out between different institutions. So our total assets at the end of October was $562,000. What I have added in the statement, and it now appears in every statement, is what percentage or what amount is attributed to each unit. So if you divide this by 80, every unit has $7,000, over $7,000 in assets. So if you unfortunately are in a position that you're going to be selling your unit, this should be highlighted, okay? Because this is an asset. It adds value to your unit. It's a big difference whether this is $1,000 or $7,000. So it appears now in every statement. In conclusion, I just want to point something out. Our bylaws state that if a unit is not occupied for more than 2 weeks or 2 weeks or more, you have to make sure that the water's turned off, that you have a condo watcher that comes once a week, okay? And we encourage all the owners to document this visit by the condo watcher because this is in our bylaws. And if you have a claim, the insurance companies have access to our bylaws. It's part of public records of the county. And if they find out that if you can't prove that you've had a condo watcher, they may not honor the claim. Now, there's 2 ways you can document it. There's now 2, or at least I think there's now 3 condo watchers that take a picture with a date and email it to each unit owner. You should keep them because that's your record. If that's not occurring, I distribute a form which you can ask your condo watcher to fill it out and deposit it in the office. And I think that's important. And we have a board member who empties or collects those once a week. A couple years ago, when Lou Levitt was doing that, he called me one day and he says, there's a unit owner who once a month drops 4 in the box. Okay. So that's what he was getting. But the reason I highlighted now is this once a week. There is a condo watcher that's offering reduced rates, and he comes every 2 weeks. And the reason I think I want to highlight this is recently there was a flood in a 4th floor unit, and this is what the bathroom looked like on the 3rd floor, and there was also severe damage on the 2nd floor. And the only reason this was picked up was because the condo watcher of the 2nd floor unit came to inspect the unit and found water dripping from the ceiling. So I just want to encourage everybody to make sure they have a condo watcher, and he comes once a week. Comes twice a week, twice a month. That water damage is going to sit there it can sit there for up to 2 weeks. Okay, that's the end of my presentation. I just want to show you what it's like outside my window. It's not Florida. It's cold. It's miserable.
Let's see some Florida pictures.
Coming, and that's my gym. Okay.
Very nice.
I climbed those stairs. When I first started doing this in March, I did 3 flights. I then extended it to 8 flights, then to 12 flights, and now I'm up to 17 flights a day. So I'd much rather do the perimeter.
Oh,
So hopefully next year, that's where we'll all meet, and we'll have a meeting in the clubhouse. Now, I can go back to the agenda, maybe.
See, they're all muting. I don't have to tell them to mute. So everybody who's going to speak up is going to unmute. That's all. No way is there.
I somehow can't get back to my agenda.
Is it a hidden agenda?
No. I'm supposed to. Okay, no, here we go.
yes.
Are you here?
How are you? I'm good. How are you? Good. What did you do today? Where are you here? I can't find you.
Okay,
I'm on the phone. I want to try to get you on my iPhone, but I can't.
now,
I'm going to try and mute him.
okay, that's Nate.
Yeah, I know.
Also, we're having a condo meeting. So
Now, are there any of the board members who would like to say something?
Dad, why don't you come?
Good job, Harry.
Okay. Now, I think someone from East Coast is on the Zoom. I think is Kyle there?
He was here.
Okay,
He was on before, and it looks like he left.
okay. Because I thought he wanted to say something. He called me ahead of time.
Yeah, but he's not there.
Okay, that's the end of that. And the only other thing we do at this time is try to talk someone in to be a cookery delegate. All I can say at this point is that if you're interested, get in touch with me and we'll appoint you as a cookery delegate. It's much easier to be one this year because it's all done on Zoom. So you can do it from your living room, from your bedroom, from your office. Okay, so I'm going to call and there's no new business, I'm gonna terminate the meeting at this time, and then we can have a free-for-all. You can, Tom is gonna unzoom you.
On Zoom you.
Unmute.
Unmute you.
Everybody can unmute themselves.
Yeah. They may not know how to do it, Tom. Why don't you unmute them all?
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
I did it. I'm
I
in
did
two
it too.
different things here.
Okay.
Rhoda.
Yes.
Where's Rhoda? There she is.
Who's calling me? Hi, Nat.
It was Bernie calling you.
Where's Bernie?
I'm there.
Right beside me.
I'm right here in Toronto.